Hello and welcome in, guys. We got the post-game video for chapter 1147. How this works is that we are going to go down the extra spoiler video comment section and read through what everybody is talking about. What are the big theories? What are the takeaways from the spoilers and all that good stuff? We're going to have a nice little conversation and just have some fun. So with that being said, let's get right to it. So the first comment we have says, I don't care what anyone says, I effing love the double page where the giants can't fight their wives. It's peak comedy. And right below it, this one kind of doubles up on it. They say, not the wives of the giant warrior pirates as nightmare monsters. Oda is so funny. Now, we know why the WG fears Elbaph. Yeah, imagine that, right? I mean, technically, you could say that Big Mom came from Elbaph too, right? She was born, spawned in Elbaph, she was raised here. Elbaph, man, they just have a knack for bringing up scary women. But yeah, I love this panel though. I think this whole plot point was phenomenal. I do wonder though, will this gag persist? Like come next chapter and the chapter afterwards, will the giants still be struggling to fight their wives and their moms and their daughters? Or is this like a one-time thing? Like after they get past the initial shock, then they're gonna lock in and beat those women. That sounds wrong. Actually, how about this? The women are still alive, right? I know we haven't seen many women here in Elbaph, minus Ripley and Ange, if you want to consider Ange one, but what if the women, what if the wives beat the nightmare versions of themselves? That'd be kind of fire. Like imagine the wives come out and they're like, hey, husband, what are you doing? You're struggling against me? And then they just start beating themselves off. Man, this just sounds really odd, huh? All right, next comment says, I adore the dialogue between Gunkko and Brook. Oda's storytelling never disappoints. It's amazing. And yeah, I really enjoy it. Of course, people like the fact that Brook doubled down on not betraying Luffy. I think that goes without saying, right? I feel like all the Straw Hats would say that. But what I love about the Brook and Gunkko dialogue the most is the beginning of it. Because Brook even says, wait, this woman. And it's like, wait a minute, like, he doesn't elaborate on that thought. So I'm just kind of wondering, how does Brook know Gunkko? Has he seen her in passing? Did he perhaps see her when he was still a human? We don't know. You know, Oda gave us so much, but so little at the same time. Right? I think Oda's definitely building on that Brook backstory right here, which is weird. Okay, I just gotta say it. It's a little bit strange, because coming off of this chapter, I'm looking forward to Robin, I'm looking forward to maybe Jinbei if he has a comeuppance, and I'm also looking forward to Brook. But you may notice somebody's missing there. You know, I'm listing the Straw Hats that could get some polish, and somebody's missing, and that character is Usopp. I'm still wondering how Usopp comes into this arc and shows that this is his dream island. Like, I don't know how he's gonna fit in yet. I do have a theory where maybe Usopp goes to Jarl and he convinces him to not sell Elbaph out, to not destroy the library and the schools. But that's just the theory, right? I mean, even Frankie has a technologically advanced building from 3,000 years ago on this island. Like, so many Straw Hats are getting things here and there, but for Usopp, I'm still like scratching my chin. Like, how is Oda gonna play with him, right? Is he gonna get a new weapon? Is he gonna show it in a fight? Or will he just get a morale W where he goes up to the giants and he's like, hey guys, don't give up. You guys are warriors, because Usopp does that a lot with giants. But yeah, overall though, Gunkko and Brook, I loved it. This comment says, Summers saw Luffy's resume and said, nah. And yeah, not just Summers. When we get the chapter, we see that Killingham also says this too. Killingham's the one who brings it up initially. He's like, hey guys, those Straw Hats that Gunkko captured, they're a part of Yonko Luffy's crew. We should release them, right? Like, let's not poke the bear. Let's not hit the hornet's nest. And I love it when people put respect on Luffy's title. But at the same time, now more so than last chapter, I am curious. If the God Knights were to fight Luffy, will Luffy just outright win? Because that's kind of how they're making it sound. Like, they just don't want to fight Luffy. But I can't tell if it's because they're scared of Luffy or if because Luffy's just too much of a hassle to deal with. And I think both can be true. Like, they're scared of Luffy, but at the same time, they also think it's a hassle. Like, they don't want to test it to begin with. Because when you really think about it, all right, if you can avoid fighting a top-tier character, you avoid fighting a top-tier character. Like, it's not part of their mission. They're not here for this. Like, when Summers first showed up here, he was in his damn underwear. I doubt he woke up this morning expecting to fight a Yonko tier character. I feel like most people don't, right? So that's kind of how I see it. I think both can be true. they fear Luffy, they don't want to fight Luffy, he's annoying to fight. I think all of the above is there. But now, like I said, I'm just curious. You put all of them in a ring against Luffy, does Luffy just destroy them? Without their regeneration, of course. Regeneration is still like an oddball because we don't know how to get around it. But yeah, I'm curious, man. We need Luffy up here. We need to bring the Sun God to the Sun Realm. This one says, the kids did mention they were scared of their moms, so that could explain the giant monster wives. Yes, so in the spoilers, they didn't clarify who spawned in the monster wives and moms, so I was kind of bouncing around the idea that maybe it was the giant warrior pirates, maybe Killingham knocked them unconscious or pulled them out while they're still awake. But nope, it turns out it is indeed the kids who brought them to life. And that's kind of crazy too when you think about it, because Killingham is seemingly spawning a lot of monsters from probably like 10 or 20 kids. Like, how many monsters and nightmares can you pull out from a single child? That right there, for me at least, is the main question. And now for the next comment, they say round 2 spoilers might be the way to go. And yes, that's because I was wondering what to call these spoilers, because since we're not getting the full summaries anymore, I was like, okay, like, should we do extra spoilers, spoilers part 2? This guy's suggesting round 2 spoilers, and honestly, I'll take anything. You know, we might go with round 2 next week. I believe Dragon could have spoken to Saul after the Ohara incident. He could have mentioned the Gorosei and the God Knights, which would have piqued Saul's interest to learn more about them from the book saved of the Ohara library. Yes, this could be the case, but of course, these comments were based on the spoiler video, but now that we have the chapter, Saul does say explicitly that he has seen Saint Somers before, or at least the God Knights before. And that's like a first-hand account, right? It sounds like he's seen them like physically in person, and now we can just equate that to his time as a vice admiral. Of course, I think Dragon still knows about them too, and since Dragon has been in proximity to Saul, I think this conversation also took place, right? I feel like once Saul wakes up, he'll give us more information on how to fight these guys, because right now he's unconscious. You know, at the very beginning of the fight, Saul said, hey, they're immortal, don't fight them, and then he got whooped by Somers. Hopefully, with Chopper in his beard, if Chopper's able to res Saul, hopefully he will give us more information. Like, hey, like, I've heard rumors that this is how you should fight them, or, ooh, maybe you should try this or that, or maybe I read in a book that this would be effective. I hope Saul ends up being that character, because as it stands right now, it's kind of sad having him unconscious. You know, I hope he gets back up. Hopefully Chopper does his work as a doctor and brings him back into the fight. All right, so this comment is a longer one. They say, hey, Sai, check this theory out. What if the new technique Scopper teaches Luffy and Zoro is Haki storage? Like, we saw Emmett release Haki Joy Boy stored, and it actually affected the Gorosei. So maybe Joy Boy used some method to store a huge amount of Haki for later use. Also, when Shanks pulled out the Wi-Fi Haki on Green Bull, and when Rayleigh flexed Conqueror's Haki on Blackbeard, the anime made it look like the Haki was coming from their swords. What if the reason their Haki feels so insane is because they've been storing it in their weapons, and when they release it, it hits just way harder? Maybe this is how they can counter the God Knights. Yes, I like this idea. I do think Scopper should know how to do this, right? He traveled with Roger. I'd be kind of shocked if he didn't, right? I feel like if you're a high-tier character, you should have at least heard of these ideas or these techniques. So yeah, maybe Scopper teaches Luffy and Zoro this, but as far as Shanks and Rayleigh being examples of storage Haki, I don't think that's the case. I think they simply coated their weapons with it, and that's pretty much it. But of course, for Joy Boy, he did do this. So if they store Haki into a weapon, I just kind of wonder what the logistics are behind it. Do they wake up once a day and just, you know, compress their Haki into an object, and then it just keeps on building and building and building until it releases? Or is it like a one-time thing where you put it into an object and then it marinates? It ages like a fine wine, and then when you release it, it's stronger than it was previously. I'm not exactly too sure how it would work quite yet, but I do like the idea in general. If they were to put it in objects, I think Luffy obviously would store his Haki in his straw hat, but for Zoro though, you know, if I'm eliminating weapons from this list, maybe Zoro stores it in his eye. I mean, that's been like a running theory, right? Like, oh, Zoro's gonna open his eye and something happens. What if it's Conqueror's Haki? You know, what if Zoro opens the eye and then Conqueror's Haki just emits from it? That would be really wacky. You know, that would feel like a typical shonen anime, but I guess One Piece is a shonen anime, so it kind of fits the theme. But yeah, I like it. I would like that a lot. This comment says, Somers and Gaban could give us another God Valley perspective. And yes, and that is why I am very much looking forward to anything Gaban says or does, because he was there. I mean, not just God Valley, but he was with Roger. You know, he knows the true history of the world. Gaban is a wealth of knowledge, and hopefully when he fights Sommers or even Gunkko or Killingham, he drops some lore. Like, maybe, for example, Sommers is immortal in a way where he doesn't age. If that's the case, then maybe they'll reminisce on God Valley. Like, oh, Sommers, this isn't the first time I fought you, huh? Or maybe Sommers isn't somebody who can't age, and maybe his dad was there. Or maybe his uncle or somebody he knows was at God Valley. I think all of those perspectives, all of those conversations could be quite freaking nice. So yeah, hopefully Gaban gives us something of the sort. In this chapter, I was hoping Gaban would say something after the St. Sommers message. Like, oh, these guys are at it again, huh? Or, ooh, I won't let them get away with it this time. You know, just something small. I'll take anything. I'll take anything. So this comment, a little bit of a bigger one as well. They say, I think one thing to point out about Sommers and fighting Yonko is that he's still under the authority of the 5 elders. Like the Marines, he probably needs their okay to attack emperors because of possible political fallout. He's a knight, not a politician. So he probably doesn't want to step on any plans that might be in motion. He just does what he was ordered to do. And yeah, I could see that. It could be totally political. Like, hey, you know, Luffy is too much. You know, if we fight him, it might trigger something in his Nika fruit. You know, maybe the Gorosei have a plan to take care of him, or maybe we need him to fulfill some kind of prophecy. We're not too sure how the Gorosei are playing, but as far as not antagonizing Luffy, I kind of hope that the Gorosei or whoever sent them on this mission would have briefed them on what to do if Luffy does show up. Because like I said, Saturn, the Gorosei, the VAs, they all knew that Luffy was going to Elbaph. So it's kind of crazy to me that they don't have any contingency plans, seemingly, or they don't have any extra information about Luffy and how to handle him. Like, if I'm sending my boy to Walmart, I'd hand over to him my Walmart associate discount code. Or if I'm sending somebody to Florida, I'd give him a raincoat. Hopefully, if the Gorosei and Imu are competent, they have given Sommers, Killingham, or Gunkko something that gives them an advantage over Luffy. Information, a weapon, anything. Anything, please, guys, please. This comment says, Sommers understands that there will be an all-out war messing with them. Luffy's allies are already on edge since the Reverie. They're itching to help Luffy in a war. Hence why the Giants rolled up on Egghead to assist them. Yep. I mean, the Giants, man, it's funny because, like, we have always been friendly with the Giants, but we never, like, drank sake cups with them, right? They're not exactly a part of the Grand Fleet, and they're still showing up to help us. And I love that mindset, because when that final war strikes, if there ever is a all-out war with the Straw Hats, which there probably will be, then I do want to see who else will show up. Like, I'm expecting everybody. You know, I'm one of those guys where when it comes to a final war, I hope everybody shows up to the table. Like Avengers Endgame, right? You know, I want Kaya, Carrot, Pepper, and Onion to show up. I want freaking Zeph and Patty to show up even. I mean, hell, bring in Arlong to help out Jimbei. Like, bring in the kit and caboodle. Get everybody over here, even if they haven't allied with Luffy with a sake cup. They just want to show up because they love the guys. But yeah, I could see that, you know, you kind of doubled up on this one. Like, hey, all out war against a Yonko. That's not exactly ideal. That is the TLDR here. This one says, with Gunkko, I love the headcanon going around that Zoro is her counter since he always goes the wrong direction. That could be it. I mean, the thing is with Zoro too, is that Zoro has Conqueror's Haki. He is pretty good in armament Haki as well. So I wonder if Haki will just emit whenever he goes the wrong direction. So not only is it like a natural thing, but it's also like, oh, like the arrow's pointing that way, I'm going this way, but Haki's on me, so it just doubly doesn't work, if that makes sense. But yeah, I love the headcanon too. Overall, if I were to put Zoro against one of the God Knights here, I guess I would want him to fight Gunkko. Yeah, like if we bring the monster trio up to the Sun Realm, I would put Zoro against Gunkko because of the memes. Luffy, I would want him to fight Killingham because of the imagination powers. And then Sommers, put him against Sanji, right? We've seen Sanji fight a Vine guy before in Strong World. What's it, Strong World? No. Film Z, sorry, Film Z. In Film Z, Sanji fought a character that had the Mosa no Mi, and he made vines grow out of the ground. And Sanji's Ifrit Janbei or Diablo Janbei actually burnt it all to a crisp. So Sanji versus Sommers, I think, is pretty perfect. And of course, because Sanji is like this robotic Germa monster, then he would just tank the thorns, in my opinion. But yeah, bring Zoro up here and have him fight Gunkko, please. Alright, so this one says, I'm thinking we might get duo fights this arc. These are my current matchups. Brook and Usopp versus Gunkko, Robin and Sanji versus Summers, Nami and Jinbei versus Killingham, Luffy and Zoro versus Shamrock and his Cerberus. This is because the Holy Knights have abilities that are stronger and more interesting when used against multiple opponents. I like that. My tag team matchups right now, I like this list by the way, but mine personally, I do Brook and Jinbei versus Gunkko. I feel like Brook is a shoo-in for everybody against Gunkko just because of their history, but I put Jinbei here just because he's currently thinking of a way to beat her, right? I think that's kind of silly that he said it, but you know, he's racking his brain. Jinbei's trying his best. For Robin, I'd put Robin and Frankie and Chopper versus Killingham. Kind of a switch up, but yeah, I put Robin, Chopper, and Frankie against Killingham. 3 might be overkill, but I do want to utilize the Straw Hats that are not the Monster Trio and all the Straw Hats that are present as well on the Sun Realm. So yeah, I do 3 against Killingham. And then as far as Sommers go, I guess I just put Scopper against him. But if we don't count Scopper, then I guess that just leaves Nami and Usopp, which, yeah, they'd be outclassed. I don't think Nami and Usopp could beat Sommers. So yeah, I think I would have to default and just go with Scopper instead. Or we could do Scopper, Nami, and Usopp, which I still don't think would be a great team up, but it's a team up, right? As far as Shamrock goes, I don't think he's here anymore. I think Shamrock is totally off of the island. At first, I was kind of mixed because we didn't see Shamrock teleport away, which I still think is kind of odd, right? Like we could have just seen one panel where Shamrock leaves, but Oda never showed us that. So I'm just kind of taking a guess that Shamrock just isn't here anymore. You know, we've gone too many chapters just not seeing him. But if he was here, then yeah, I would go with Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji versus Shamrock. Mainly because they're the only Straw Hats I didn't bring in here because I didn't talk about the Monster Trio. But yeah, overall, I like these matchups. I don't think it's bad at all. I think Killingham is such an interesting one though, because Killingham's fight changes drastically based on who's fighting him. Like his abilities, his movesets, they all change. Because if he puts you to sleep and brings out your nightmare, that varies from person to person. So I think Killingham is the one we have to watch out for here. Brook, better learn, back that thing up if he's going to survive. Yeah, he's got to learn some love songs. You know, forget back that thing up. He's got to learn some love songs. He's got to sway Gunkko back into his groupie club. Luffy, handling 5 Gorosei plus 1 Admiral and getting away. Sommers, nah, I'd lose. Yeah, here's the thing, right? Minus the whole thing where Sommers might not want to fight Luffy because of political reasons or because it's a Yonko thing. Yeah, if he just thinks he'd flat out lose, I'd respect it. You know, you gotta respect a guy that knows his place. He doesn't want to waste time. He doesn't want to, you know, roll the dice against an opponent that's higher level than him. W. You know, he may lose the battle, but I think he won the war. Well, no, he wouldn't win the war. He won a good mentality. He won common sense. No, that doesn't make sense either. Spawning their wives definitely seems like a nightmare Shikamaru and his dad would have. Wives and moms are scary, dude. Yeah. And the thing is, you know, these are the kids' interpretations of the moms and wives. They're bigger. They're scarier than they normally are. So I feel the Giants, man. I feel their pain and suffering. This one says, Robin, about to become a demon again. Yes, and I gotta bring this up. So like I said, I think this is like the second or third time I've said it, but these comments are based on the spoiler video. None of the images, none of the chapter has released yet. And right now, one of the main things everybody's talking about is Robin's eyes and how at the very end of the chapter, she has the double layered eyes. That's, I don't know what that was. She has the double layered eyes, kind of like Emu, like Mihawk, like Caribou. And people are wondering what the hell is going on with that. And I will admit, I kind of glossed over it in my review video. I didn't really talk about it, but I think that just shows that Robin is angry, because we've seen that a couple times before in the past with Robin, where she's brought out those eyes as well. I think there's even some panels where Nami does it too, where they just have that double layer, but it's just to show how angry they actually are. And that is what I personally think is going on with Robin here in this chapter. I don't think it's anything super crazy. You know, if the eye persists, if the eye keeps on going through that one panel, then yeah, I think something is up. But right now, I think it's more of a stylistic thing. That's how Oda depicts angry characters. And hey, Sommers in this chapter talks about burning down the books from Ohara. You know, Robin's pretty pissed about that. So she has just activated demon mode to save those books, brother. Sommers says, let's not provoke this emperor. Gunkko, having bullied the non-Monster Trio Straw Hats, knowing full well that those guys will avenge their beating and get back the kids. Too late for that. What I think is funny too is that when you get the chapter, Gunkko doesn't even respond to Summers or killing him. Like, they're like, hey, Gunkko, let him go. Let's not fight this emperor. And then we pan over to Gunkko, and she's still kicking the crap out of Brook. She does not care if she angers a Yonko. She wants her musical slave. She wants the Soul Emperor in her possession. Dude, if Brook knew about the God Knights, then of course Saul knows. He could be the same age as Brook. Also, living in a different time isn't a thing. Living in a different time isn't a thing. Okay, I'm not too sure about this last part, but as far as the age goes, I agree with that, right? Saul is 127 years old. He has a wealth of knowledge under his belt, but I do equate it also to just being a former vice admiral. Like, surely Saul maybe in the past partook in a rabbit hunting tournament. Maybe he was one of the people who was entrusted to guarding that island while the God Knights were slaying civilians. Or maybe Saul met them on some insane mission we have not heard about yet. I'm really just curious about the specifications of this. Like, sure, it makes sense that Saul knows about the God Knights, but now that he said that he's seen the God Knights and he's seen St. Summers before, I'm just wondering where and when, right? Because the God Knights and the Gorsei, they don't deploy for nothing. They do if you consider the rabbit hunting tournament, right? But even then, that was a big event. That was God Valley. They've done it other times outside of that, but we haven't heard about those other situations yet. So yeah, I'm just wondering because like right now, the only time we've heard and seen about the Gorsei and God Knights deploying was God Valley, Egghead Island, and now here in Elbaph. And all three of those situations are massive. So yeah, if Saul saw one of these guys firsthand, I'm just wondering what went down, right? Like, what went down for the God Knights who've been deployed in the past? And for Saul to be there to see them and also learn about their immortality. All right, and now for this last comment, they say, the Holy Knights are more tactical and dangerous, and Sommer's personality is something different, I guess, but for sure, Oda is cooking for the Holy Knights, yeah. I like how they mobilize them. I also love that they seemingly are really good together. Like, their abilities just work so well in tandem, right? Killing Ant puts them to sleep, Gunkko walks them, and Summers protects them. Like, they've done this before. And I kind of wonder, like, what is it like to be raised as a Holy Knight? What kind of training do they put you through up in the Holy Land? Because when it comes to the Straw Hats have gotten stronger and stronger with each and every passing arc and villain defeated. The Straw Hats gain another level or two. But for the God Knights, who are they fighting? Who are they training against, right? Like, the Celestial Dragons, from what we've seen, have very cushy lifestyles. So how did they get this powerful? I'm kind of curious. Like, maybe there's like a training dummy up in the Holy Land that they spar against, or maybe they just fight each other, or they run drills. Because right now, the only time we've seen the God Knights deployed and fighting, well, quote, fighting, was at God Valley. And I'm gonna admit it, but the God Valley civilians were not putting up that much of a fight. Of course, later though, the Roger and Rocks pirates showed up, but that was outside of the norm. So every other rabbit hunting tournament they've had, they're just going around slaughtering innocent people, and, you know, surely they don't give a lot of experience points. But maybe that's just me. But yes, with that being said though, guys, thank you so much for being here. I really freaking appreciate it. Thank you for all those comments, man. Of course, the more comments, the merrier, the more conversations we can have. And yeah, let me know what you thought about this chapter now that it has fully freaking released. And that's pretty much it. I'll catch you guys later. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you for spending your time here, and peace out, brother.